Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mental Health Matters, the podcast that helps break down stigma through just having general conversations about mental health and getting into specifics about mental illness, and also just recognizing that mental health touches everybody. As always, this is Tom Duff. I'm the Executive Director of St. Louis Counseling, also a licensed clinical social worker. And what we always try to do is have some entertaining guests, informative guests, and people that can just talk about life and sometimes talk about how mental health affects parts of our overall functioning and our overall components to just our daily lives. So today we have two guests. We're going to be talking to a couple veterinarians. So Dr. Ed Migneco and Marcy Hammerle. How are you guys?
Good morning. Very well.
Thanks for having us.
Good. I'm excited. You know, I had ran into Dr. Ed. We were in the studio here at We Are Live Radio, Midcoast Media, right? And you're a partner with them, and we were kind of just walking out the door at the same time. And you had said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing maybe a story about veterinarians and the mental health kind of crisis that's going on inside that field?" And I thought, no, I haven't. Let me look into that. And then, once looking into it, realizing there's some recent research that just came out end of last year, as well as even a few years back, just talking about the stressors and depression, anxiety, suicide rate is increasing over the past few years. So we'll kind of get into some of that today, but I guess first with both of you guys, so how long have you guys been practicing? So Marcy, how long have you been a veterinarian?
I graduated from Mizzou in 2003, so 16 years.
16 years. Why did you originally get interested?
The same reason that everyone does, I guess, that you like animals and want to help them.
Uh-huh. And Dr. Ed, how about you? How long have you been practicing?
I got her doubled up. I've been practicing for 33 years.
33, wow.
Yeah, I graduated from Mizzou in 86.
In 86?
Yep.
I wasn't even born yet. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, if you look at me, you'll know. And how about you? Any particular reason you guys got going?
It's really fun because I never had any, the usual pets. I never had any dogs or cats growing up. So I never had the occasion to visit a veterinarian, but my father was a high school educator, and he was the guy, and he was at Roosevelt High School here in St. Louis. Huh. And he's the type of guy, even though he wasn't a science teacher, he's the guy who took all the animals home at the end of the school year in the science labs. So we always had unusual pets. We had rats and mice and guinea pigs and snakes and lizards, and so we had all of those. And
wow.
And he helped me. We built an incubator in our basement, and we had some duck eggs, and so all kinds of stuff like that. So I never had my first dog until actually I was in veterinary school.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. But he kept you pretty busy otherwise.
Yeah. It was definitely very interesting.
Yeah. Marcy, how about you? Did you have pets growing up?
I had everything growing up, cats and dogs and horses and gerbils. My parents were very accommodating of my love of animals. So
then, so one quick question. What's the strangest animal you guys that has been brought into one of your clinics? Because Marcy, you're with Pet Doctor in O'Fallon, right?
Yep.
That's your business. And you're with Hillside Animal Hospital, right?
Yes.
So what's the weirdest, or maybe not weirdest, but most different animal that came in?
A camel. I've seen a camel a few times. That's really exciting when someone wants to bring something unusual in. The other thing that's really fun is my clinic has a wildlife rehab license, so we take care of baby orphaned wildlife, raccoons and squirrels. So that's always fun.
Uh-huh. A camel. Interesting.
Yeah.
How about you, Dr.
Was it on hump day? Yeah, sorry.
They're half price. Camels are half
Yeah.
price.
Back in the day, at the old arena, they used to have the Barnum and Bailey, circus there, and they used to actually park the performers' rail cars, on a siding right on Manchester, right in front of the clinic.
Wow.
So, actually, one day the lion tamer walked in with a tiger cub.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he said it wasn't sick or anything. He just said it was pretty new, and he just wanted a little checkup to make sure it was okay. And it was like, wow, that was really exciting just to be able to see that thing
in the middle of St. Louis.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's unfortunate. The train doesn't stop there anymore.
Yeah.
Because the animals will be getting even more unique. So typical day in the life, right, of a veterinarian, what's it kind of consist of? Like how early, so Marcy, how early do you start in the day, and then how many different animals might you see, things of that nature?
My clinic is open from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. during the week. And on an average day, we'll probably have, I don't know, 35 to 40 different appointments, surgeries, drop-offs, things like that. And usually 2 doctors at a time there to see those appointments.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Ed, how about you?
We usually have about 3 doctors on at a time. We have 1 doctor who does surgeries, starting as we have drop-offs as early as 7 for surgeries, and then they just go until they're finished. I mean, it could be a couple hours, it could be till 12 or after 12, depending on how many surgeries, or we do a lot of dental work too. And then 2 doctors seeing appointments at all times, and again, anywhere from 20 to 30 appointments in a day for each doctor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it becomes a jam-packed kind of day.
Yeah, it has been really busy. This is our busy time of the year, I think, for most practices.
Mm-hmm.
And then always there's some emergency. Every day there'll be something. We're never going to turn away a pet that's sick or injured, and so we're always trying to shift our schedule around to accommodate our clients' pets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do a lot of we'll have a lot of clients. If we're like no appointments available and it's a really sick animal, we'll have them do a drop off, and whatever doctor is free in between appointments, we'll see that animal.
Oh, wow. That I did not realize. It's kind of like with my car. I do that with my car sometimes. They're like,
Yeah.
just drop it off, we'll work it in. So you guys can do
Yeah,
some
you
of that too.
you never want to turn anybody away.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a lot of times, so when I got into kind of, researching a little bit more about, mental health among veterinarians, and then it's like, it just all clicked in my head. It's like, wow, you guys are dealing with so many tragic events, heartbreaking events to start with, right? And there's, so many different things that go into play with that on a daily, not just the stress of being a veterinarian, but then the impact that people, when they're coming in last minute looking for help, and like you said, you don't want to turn them away because, my God, it's a pet, it's an animal they care about, and that's got to be difficult after a while.
It is. I mean, most of the time, you're doing what's best for the animal. I mean, that's the underlying, I think, thing that keeps it all together for us. I mean, we know we're helping the animals. That sometimes the clients don't always see that side of it, or see that that's what we're trying to do. But that's the bottom line. Whatever we have to do, and we have to recommend what we think is best for the animal.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think is so? I'm sure it's a very rewarding job as well too. What would you say is the most rewarding part of the job, and then also what's the most stressful or frustrating part of it as well?
The most rewarding part is being able to help a pet. That's the thing. We do some physical therapy, and we have a dog that we were just treating that couldn't walk at all 4 weeks ago, and we've been working with her daily for 4 weeks, and now she's almost back to normal function. And when something like that happens, that just makes everybody's day.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest part and the most stressful part for me is every single day someone thinks that there's a financial motivation to what we do. Every single day someone will say, oh, that's a lot of money, or oh, why do you charge that much? And people don't understand that we love animals and we want to help animals, but we also do have to pay for staff and equipment and our building and everything else, and that we can't do things for free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. I run into some of that as well too.
Yeah, it is so hard, and and then you get the clients who are really kind of almost nasty about it. That they just don't understand that why we just don't help their pet. And it's just like we bend over backwards and we try to, there's ways that we can get around certain things, but like Marcy said, I mean, I have a responsibility to my staff. I have a staff to pay, and they have families, and I have to be able to help all the animals, not just their animal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really heart-wrenching sometimes when you really want to help it, but there's just nothing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and and for people to realize too, the equipment you guys are using. I mean, you think of a hospital for humans. I mean, there's a lot of equipment in there that you guys are using the same version or something very similar to that same technology, I should say, the same engineering, and that's very costly, I imagine, as well too.
Yeah, Marcy and I are both board certified specialists. It's a specialty practice. It's a specialty board for general practitioners. Like there are veterinary surgeons and veterinary oncologists, things like that. We're boarded practitioners. So I mean, we did this on our own, and it's a challenge for us, but it's a higher standard too. So I mean, we both of our hospitals are, like you said, are equipped with the utmost up to date and unfortunately expensive equipment for anesthesia and for monitoring and for diagnostics. So yeah, it's not cheap.
Mm-hmm. So when I was reading about mental health and veterinarians, and so over the last few years they've talked, well, one study was from the early 2000s up until like 2016, I think, and the rate for suicide has risen dramatically. One stat I saw was 1 out of 6 veterinarians had thought about suicide at one point. And some of that's comparable, when you start talking about the overall population as well too, that we've seen an increase over time. But I guess from your guys' perspective as practicing veterinarians, do you see the toll that mental health, that's on your mental health, because the way we look at mental health is you have health, you have physical health, you have mental health. Everybody has those. Some people deal with a mental illness. Some people just deals with the ebb and flow of just mental health in general, right? So, I mean, the profession itself, do you guys kind of agree with some of those concerns that we need to be monitoring that within the practice?
There's a lot of people looking at the suicide rate in veterinary medicine right now, and it's so multifactorial, all of the stresses that we have, from the financial piece to student debt ratios to, wanting to help and owners not letting us help sometimes. And then even, euthanasia. I think that even though we're doing it in the best interest of the pet sometimes, it still really can emotionally take a toll on us. Plus, I wonder that we're taught that euthanasia is the relief of suffering. Mm-hmm. And so there's that whole culture. And so if we're brought up to believe that, all through our careers, and you get to a point where you feel like you're suffering from depression or loneliness, mm-hmm. or, whatever, mm-hmm. that sometimes I think that people go straight to that euthanasia can be the relief of suffering.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we both have known veterinarians who have committed suicide, mm-hmm. and so it really does hit home.
Mm-hmm. And and any time with that, you think back, you're like, what did I miss signs? Did I miss symptoms? And I think that's sometimes the beauty of being able to look back at history and then trying to help predict the future with prevention strategies and things of that nature. And sometimes we don't know. We don't know what people are dealing with, and it's one of the reasons we started this podcast was start trying to talking about mental health okay, and then bringing this forward and get into specifics as well too, because the profession, like you described with euthanasia, is you could see where some of that, if somebody's truly dealing with, a high level of depression, and then that's part of that culture, you definitely could see that connection in there.
There's a group called Not One More Vet. It's a Facebook group, and it also has a website and everything, and there's about 13,000 veterinarians in this group, and it is there specifically to support people that are feeling in crisis. And it's great. You can post on there as yourself. You can post anonymously. They've got interventionists kind of behind the scene that if someone reaches out and says that they're feeling suicidal, there's trained veterinarians that can reach out to them and help them through different situations. It really has been just huge for the profession to have that kind of support.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And even with having the ability, to use social media, which is good and bad sometimes, as we all know. People can get on there and say whatever they want, but that's like a really good example of a positive thing that social media can bring to the forefront. When you look at that level of, what we've seen some of those issues increase over the years, and from what I've just read, and I'm no expert at all, it seems some of the research is all showing there's more females going into the field now than there was previously.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
That's definitely true. And then so with males, a lot of times, stereotypically speaking, us males, we try to hold things in and not deal with that. And then there's certain professions we know too that has kind of, you don't talk about your feelings, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Do you think the field of veterinary medicine has been like that historically, or hasn't been that big of an emphasis in kind of, keeping things quiet, so to speak?
I don't know that I can make that correlation. I mean, I don't know. That's a tough question.
I think sometimes we just didn't know. Even when it was a more male-centric kind of a profession, I don't know that there was less suicide. Maybe it just maybe wasn't as talked about.
Yeah.
I think we're just trying to, like you said, get rid of the stigma with different mental illness and depression and things like that, where people feel more open talking about their problems and don't just kind of hold it inside.
What would you guys think, or what are some, I guess, ideas out there? Like we saw the Facebook group is a great idea. You think there's other avenues where, we could incorporate mental health into the veterinary field?
Yeah, I think just talking about it, like in general. I mean, I know that's really basic, but people have to be willing to talk about it. I did a webinar one time about compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people confuse that, I guess, with burnout. So I mean, but I'm sure there's some crossing over. Because you deal with it on a daily basis, and it can build up.
Yeah, compassion fatigue. Burnout. I kind of look at burnout as that world of like, I'm done. I just can't work in this field anymore. I just don't even like my job. Where compassion fatigue, you're still in it, but you feel it. You feel what those people are feeling, and I would think it'd be hard not to. I mean, when you've seen, I don't know, I'm guessing here, but probably tears almost on a daily basis from people. That raw side of emotion. That's a lot to deal with.
I have one instance that and it really kind of surprised me. It was a euthanasia, and it was a good client, and it was a really good dog, and I liked the dog, but it wasn't like a really special dog to me. But I mean, at the euthanasia, I mean, we were all just sitting around and we did it, and I mean, and the tears just started flowing, and it's just like. And I don't know why in that case that it really just hit me. I mean, and like I said, I really liked the dog a lot, but it just kind of really surprised me.
Yeah.
And it was right in front of the client too, and they of course they didn't mind. I mean, but
no, I bet not at all. That's probably even more touching for them. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, and I think you had said it before, Marcy. Like there's so many different factors, and maybe that particular day, you were already dealing with some other stuff, and that was one more thing, and that's the thing with the ebb and flow of all of our own mental health day in and day out. It's we're all up and down depending on the day, and sometimes people are like, oh, I'm just hangry, I haven't eaten anything, but really it could be a little bit more than that. Who knows? With that concept of euthanasia, is that something that when you get into it, right, you just have to know that's part of the job, right? But I'm sure, when you think about doctors, right, they're not dealing with that side of it, that, they are, giving the drugs to, put a person, that sounds bad, put a person down. But for you guys, I mean, that's part of what's expected at a certain point. So how do you kind of manage that with yourselves?
It's a big responsibility. It really is. It's, a lot of times putting your own feelings aside and doing what's best for that particular client or that particular pet. And, you always have to feel like you're making a decision that's in the pet's best interests. But that doesn't mean it doesn't weigh on you. I think it's always hard. Even if it's a pet that you haven't had a relationship with, it's still a big responsibility.
I think another side of that is the clients who really don't either don't understand or don't want to listen to your counseling that it's really time to consider euthanasia, and they let their pet go on and on and on, and then, and it's suffering, and it's, and they're keeping that pet alive for their own benefit because they can't make that decision. I hear so often that the clients who say, oh, I hope they just go in their sleep at home. That's what they always want, so that takes the decision out of their hands.
Yeah.
And and that bothers me a lot when I know that it's really time, and it's almost like you don't want to talk them into it, but you have to for the pet's benefit. You really want to end their suffering.
Yeah, I mean, the way you guys are describing it, it is, I mean, that, and so how you take care of that afterwards, for yourselves, because like you said, it's a big responsibility, and it's that having the clients trust in you, with that, and how you go about it as well too, bedside manner, right, for the not just for the pet, but for the people as well.
You're counseling the people too. I mean, you really are, and I mean, and some of them, I mean, are just almost inconsolable. And one of the things I like to say to people is that, look, this is a very hard decision to make, but you have to remember you're making it on your pet's behalf, okay? And then I say, go home, okay? Be sad, okay? Feel sad about what happened, but don't feel bad about it, because I said that you really got to think that way, that you're actually helping your pet. The pet's not suffering anymore. And don't feel bad, but it's okay to feel sad.
Yeah, helping them figure out what their emotions are. Yeah.
There's such a fine line. I think so much of our profession is the empathy and being empathetic and being supportive of other people's emotions. But there's such a fine line between feeling empathetic and taking on other people's feelings. And it can become overwhelming, when you've got people that you are counseling through that kind of a process, or counseling through they want to take care of their pet and maybe can't afford it, or counseling through, we go to vet school because we want to take care of animals, but no one tells you when you're in vet school that so much of the profession is also taking care of the people.
Yeah, because I have several friends that that's their pet is their life, and we're pet owners as well too, and it's like you don't even sometimes realize the significance, until it's like, the dog's out, getting a haircut, and you're like, oh, where'd he go? Where's he at? Why is it so kind of lonely around here? And so, yeah, I mean, it's a whole different relationship.
I have something I like to say to the clients sometimes, and sometimes the best thing that I can dispense is peace of mind. Yeah. They come in because their dog is, making this terrible sound, and then I tell them, oh, well, it's just a reverse sneeze. Your dog's fine, and they're relieved. Their pet's not dying.
Yeah.
And it's something simple, and that makes me feel good. Because they came in there so worried, and I was able to calm their fears.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, so like so much of they don't prepare you in vet school to deal with the person side, the people side of it as well too.
I think they're doing a better job. I think vet schools have trended more towards teaching some of those kind of client care skills along with their curriculum, which is great.
And is vet school still very competitive and hard to get into? And I mean, I had friends that have gone through, and they're like, oh my gosh, it was such a competitive world, and yeah.
There's only 28 vet schools in the United States.
Wow.
So not even one
I did not
each
realize
state.
that.
So there's definitely a lot of competition.
Yeah, I'm going through that right now. My youngest daughter is going to be applying this fall at the University of Missouri, and they take 120, half in-state and half out-of-state.
Really?
Now, for the half out-of-state, for those 60 spots out-of-state, they'll have hundreds, 500 initial applicants, which they whittle down to so many that they'll interview. For the in-state, I think it's about a 2-to-1. They'll get about 120, 130 applicants for the 60 in-state spots.
Unbelievable. So yeah, the stress starts right off the bat, from getting into getting good grades and then moving on to your career. So yeah, high stress kind of world.
Yeah, they actually have full-time counselors, I think, on staff. Is that the correct term, counselor, I think, but on staff now for the vet students.
Wow.
Yeah.
Walk them through the process.
Yeah, because I remember, I started out in vet school being really stressed out and not doing great. not in any danger of flunking, but just not doing great. And then it finally just hit me that, like, you know, I need to just relax. I mean, I study till I'm tired, and then I go to bed. I wasn't going to be one of those people who pulled all-nighters like some of my classmates did. I had classmates who would get physically sick in the bathroom before every exam, and it's just like, it just wasn't worth it.
Kind of that, setting that boundary and that self-care time there too. So self-care, what do you guys do to take care of yourselves then? This is the therapist in me, right? So you work hard, it's a stressful world. Do you guys have your self-care plans? Do you have those hobbies that keeps you busy?
I think I do have hobbies, but the one thing that keeps things kind of on a good playing field for me is my team at work. We have a great time together. We enjoy each other. We are very close, and we do talk about, gosh, that was a terrible euthanasia, and I'm feeling overwhelmed about it, and I have people at work that I can even talk to that really help. And then friends in the profession that you can call each other and talk through a case or talk through a problem that you're having, something like that. I think that really helps.
Yeah, Marcy's been one of my biggest supporters. I mean, and my other friends who are veterinarians, if something bad happens to you, chances are it's already happened to them. Yeah.
Very true. So those relationships are key.
Oh yeah. I mean, all the time. I mean, it works both ways. I mean, I'll have a bad day, my friends will have a bad day, and they'll call you up, and you know, you got to know that other people have gone through it, and it sucks, and you feel bad, but you know, you'll get past it, and you'll keep moving forward.
So for people out there, I mean, what the general public, right? You know, one thing you mentioned is, you know, you'd want people to understand, you know, you want to help everybody, but sometimes, you know, there's only so much you can do, even from a financial constraint as well too. But when it comes to the practice and recognizing that mental health is a big component for you guys and all of the veterinarians in the field, anybody working in a vet office, you know, what would you want the general public to know about the field and the career and what it takes to be a veterinarian?
99% of the veterinarians I know are not in this profession for any kind of financial gain at all. They were in this profession because we truly do care about pets and people, and we study your case at night, and we go home and we worry about your dog, and we want your cat to feel better. And every veterinarian that I know, that's their motivation for doing what they do, and just to understand that we also deserve to make a living and to pay our staff, and to you know, you can't go to the grocery store and get your food up to the checkout and say, oh, I don't want to pay for this. So,
yeah.
You know, just to understand that we have to make a living too, but that's not our primary motivation for doing what we do. So.
Yeah, it's all about helping. I mean, that's like Marcy said, we all want to help. I mean, and you just want people to understand that. I mean, we bend over backwards. Marcy and I are both guilty of not being able to say no to somebody who needs help.
We'll give out your phone numbers later.
Yeah. I mean, we both have that disease, you know. So, I mean, we do so much to help people that people don't recognize. I mean, gosh, Marcy could talk for 15 minutes on all the different groups that she works with. I mean, besides the wildlife, I mean, she boards pets for women in crisis.
Oh, wow.
You know, things like that. She never wants to talk about it herself,
Yeah.
but she does so many wonderful things. And we work with, again, so many different rescue groups that we're giving, you know, really big discounts to, and part of it is subsidized by our regular clients, and I kind of want people to understand that. It's because, you know, because of that we're able to do so much, and we are able to help so many other people and pets.
You guys are really describing that mission side, you know, which is really cool to hear, which also makes you realize how much it carries with you, stays with you. It's who you are. And like you said, you know, 99% of the people you guys work with and the veterinarians, you know, that's what it's all about. So then when you look at that mental health, you know, call it crisis or whatever you want to call it, but within the field, it's because a field of helpers, a field of people that are dedicated, that are bending over backwards, you know, and then, you know, if we can get to that point, like you both have said, like we got to talk about it, we got to put it out there, and we got to just make it okay to talk about and have those social support connections. And I think, you know, when you're talking about, you know, watching animals for people, women that are in crisis, that's the things we forget a lot of times when you look at the flooding, right? Or you look at tornadoes, you look at all those, and even personal crisis, fires, things of that nature. It's like, what happens to that pet, you know, and how important that is to that pet if, you know, they live through it, and then that family still, that's part of the family. It's like not having your kid with you, and they have to live somewhere else. And we don't, I think sometimes when you're just looking at the news, you forget those other sides.
Yeah, I went down with several other veterinarians and technicians and volunteered at the Joplin tornado. And boy, what an operation. They had, I think it wasn't ASPCA, whatever, that was there. And they had like warehouses with a warehouse for dogs and a warehouse for cats. Wow. Of displaced animals. And every day, I mean, and our job was to care for them and make them sure and then try to get them back to the owners. And every day, I mean, they had a little tote board, you know, where an owner would walk through, and they kept a running total of how many, and that was always the best when an owner found their pet.
Yeah, because, you know, sometimes I look at my kids and I know they're connected to our family dog, and then but that you kind of just like, okay, there's the dog, you just kind of keep living, but then when we're away and then we come home, that's the first thing. Animal, person, whatever they want to hug, you know, that's who they're looking for, checking in, and so when you think of those tragedies and how that affects them, it's just remarkable.
We're really lucky with our state veterinary association. One, they do have a volunteer veterinary corps, which people can sign up for that and then would be called to serve in case of a disaster like that. But the other thing, our Missouri Veterinary Association actually has a wellness committee now to look at things like veterinary mental health, which is great. I did a talk at our last state conference on the QPR. Are you familiar with that? It's a suicide awareness campaign. It's question, persuade, refer, and it's just maybe how to notice if a colleague is having difficulties and questions you can ask and kind of resources to help people get help that they need. So our state organization is really behind us as far as kind of getting us through some of the suicide crisis in our profession.
That is awesome. That is great to hear, because those are the things that continually make talking about mental health okay in our communities and in our professions and just in our everyday lives. So, well, we have been here with Dr. Ed and Dr. Marcy, sharing a lot of just, I think, some really good in-depth perspectives. And that's what I was really kind of hoping about, was hearing, you know, from the horse's mouth, you know, like how I included the animal there. That's pretty good, right? Yeah, nah, not so much. But no, I mean, hearing exactly from you guys what it's like, you know, to help some of our listeners and myself as well to understand that world. And it comes back to that compassion, that mission side, why you're doing it, and being helpers. And also, I think we heard a lot about you got to take care of each other, the relationships, starting the conversation, opening up the doors with somebody you might be concerned about, and checking in on each other. So some really, really, really good stuff going on.
I've come to realize myself that I'm happiest when I'm helping, you know, whether it's I'm helping the pets or when I'm helping the people who own the pets. So that's key for me. I mean, I need to keep that going.
Yeah. So knowing yourself as well too is really important in all of this. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us. This has been another episode of Mental Health Matters, and you can tune in again next week. I guess it's not really tune in. You know, I keep thinking it's like a radio. It's not really tune in. It's download us or click us next week. But once again, we've had a great conversation with Dr. Marcy and Dr. Ed. And until next time, this is Tom Duff, St. Louis Counseling and Mental Health Matters.
This has been Mental Health Matters with Tom Duff of St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out stlouiscounseling.org for more information.